Okay, everybody, we're going to call the meeting to order, please. So very, very warm welcome to you all to the Strategic Planning and Policy Committee for the month of March. First of all, I'd like to take apologies. We have some from Bruce and from Tākina. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Marcus. All in favour? Carried. Any disclosure of members?
We're going to note the reasons why for their absence. This is our new convention.
Certainly, we can absolutely note their reasons. Do we have any reasons?
I understand Councillor Thomas is on holiday.
On vacation?
Vacation, pre-set sometime. I believe it's been delayed 100 times for COVID. But
okay. So yeah, just a reminder to everybody, if you do have an apology, that we'll be listing the reason for that. Thank you, Joe.
I received an apology from Councillor Sterling.
Was there a reason attached to that for the minutes?
It wasn't this morning.
Okay, thank you, Joe. All right, we'll move on to disclosure of members' interests. If we have any this morning, Councillor Pettit. The draft annual plan, our item number 6. Yep, no, thank you, Mike. Are there any other disclosures this morning? Lou.
It's an ongoing thing. So
Memorial Park.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Lou.
Just as a statement, I've considered whether or not I had.
Sorry? I've considered whether or not I had an interest for the Cambridge Museum, but seeing as I stepped down from both that Heritage Trust and the museum now well over a year ago, then I don't consider I've got a conflict.
Thank you, Roger. Okay, we'll keep moving on. Any late items this morning? None. Confirmation of order of meeting, please. Thank you. Councillor Brown and Councillor Pettit, all in favour? Carried. All right, we'll move on to the confirmation of the minutes, our previous meeting on the 7th of February. Are there any items there that people would like to discuss, amend? We do have a recommendation as well for a true and correct record if someone would like to move and second that. Thank you, Councillor Coles, and seconded is Councillor Lou Brown. All in favour? Carried. Thank you, everybody. All right, so we'll go on to our first item today, which is our draft annual plan. We have Kirsty and Ken who will present the matter, and I've also invited our community board chairs to the meeting today. So welcome Joe, welcome Ange. And as already discussed, I'm happy for you to take part in this item, considering there are a number of Cambridge and Te Awamutu consequences as well. All right. Oh, sorry, Mike.
Just wondering through the chat, at what point, you just tell me when I need to leave, maybe, or do I leave?
Perhaps if you just don't take part in that particular item, yeah, verbally, I think I'll be happy with that. Okay, I'll hand it over to you both, Kirsty and Ken. Thank you. Oh, and welcome, Melissa.
Thank you, Madam Chair, tēnā koutou katoa. As elected members are aware, you're required to adopt an annual plan for 23-24 by the 30th of June this year. The purpose of this report is to provide you with the draft annual plan for 23-24. We've received a number of funding requests from community organisations, and these are detailed in the report. The staff recommendation is that the committee directs staff to include additional funding of $110,000 for the Cambridge Town Hall Trust. It is noted, however, that this has not been included in the draft annual plan that is attached to the report as Appendix 1. Under Section 95 of the Local Government Act 2002 and Council's own significance and engagement policy, we are required to, or not required to consult on the annual plan unless there are any material or significant differences from year 3 of the long-term plan. The draft annual plan as presented does not contain any significant or material differences from year 3. And it's on that basis that the staff recommendation to the committee is that you agree not to consult on the draft annual plan. If the committee resolves as per the recommendations outlined in the report, the next steps are for us to bring back to you the draft annual plan for approval at SP&P meeting in June and to council for adoption also at the end of June. Ken is going to speak to matters of a financial nature, including the district rating revaluation, funding requests, and also development contributions. And the team is available to respond to any questions that you have at the conclusion of Ken's address. Just like to also note that we received a number of questions from some elected members over the past few days, and that these have been responded to by form of email addressed to all elected members last night. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kirsty. Okay, so just I guess just the high points from a financial perspective that I just want to just to reinforce, I suppose. So in terms of the level of rates increase that's being proposed in this report, so that is now essentially 6% with the recommendation for the additional 110,000 for the Cambridge Town Hall. So the 5.9 that's reflected here that will push us up to 6. That quite clearly is higher than the 3.7% that was provided in year 3 of the LTP, but it is less than our 6.3% limit. The higher rates increase in terms of the 6% versus the 3.7, largely driven by inflationary pressures right across the board, and interest rate increases. Those are two obviously very dominant factors impacting us and impacting right through the sector and right through the economy, to be honest. Just want to note the potential impact, the impact of the district rating revaluation. So the district rating revaluation is still being conducted. We are hoping to have those values released to the public at the beginning of April. But there is no doubt that the district rating revaluation will significantly change the rating incidence between rural and residential, as well as commercial and industrial sectors. So so much stronger valuation increases in the residential, commercial and industrial sectors, lifestyle properties, etc. as well, versus rural properties. So not only will it change that rating instance, but it will also broaden the range around the 6% average. Okay, so you'll see some of those residential properties and certainly some of the commercial industrial properties with rates increases of around 7-8%, etc. Whereas some of the farms are actually going to have rates decreases. So you'll certainly see that coming through in those indicator property examples. We have looked to soften that slightly by reducing the UAGC. So the UAGC comes down slightly, pushes a little bit more of the rate onto to capital value. So we have used that mechanism. We've used that commonly in the past as well. However, that really doesn't change things too much. And you can certainly see the incidence quite strongly, the change in incidence quite strongly in the indicated properties. Actually, I'm just wondering through the chair, can we come back to questions just at the end? We'll certainly open those up shortly. Yep, cool. Just want to. I won't talk too much about the additional funding for the Cambridge Town Hall. I think the report covers that quite well. It's largely related to the desire of the council that we see that town hall activated. So a much higher usage of the town hall. So that's resulted in a request for an additional 110,000. I do need to point out that very apologetic about this. There is an error in the report. So let me just see where that is, where we talk about the Cambridge Town Hall. It is on page 30 of the agenda. We talk about the targeted rate for the Cambridge Town Hall being applied on both the Cambridge and the Mangatautari Mangatauteri wards. The reference to the Mangatauteri ward there is an error. That targeted rate for the Cambridge Town Hall is only applied on the Cambridge ward, so the urban area around Cambridge, obviously. So just wanted to point that out. And then just in closing up, the only other thing I just wanted to talk to was about development contributions. So parallel to the annual plan and parallel to the fees and charges which are provided for on the agenda, obviously we are working through the development contribution rates for the upcoming year. So Tony Coots is in the room working through that. Essentially, the only change that we're looking to put through there, I believe, is an adjustment to accommodate the higher interest rates that we're experiencing. But a separate report on that matter will be brought to the Finance and Corporate Committee meeting at the end of this month. So just in case you were wondering what was happening in the development contribution space, we'll come back to you at the end of this month on that matter. Yep, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ken. Okay, look, I think, Roger, is your question a finance question? Yes, I'll take your question first, and then I do want to move to the community board because, so if it's a rates question, absolutely.
Sorry, and it's not one of the questions I asked earlier on or anything related to those, but you mentioned the UAGC. What, and I'm sure it's in there, but I can't see the part where it's mentioned. And you say that you've varied the UAGC. Has it gone up from what to what? And I believe there's a maximum that the UAGC can move to. And how are we in relation to that maximum?
Okay, so actually, sorry, through the chair, can I just check, have we got Deborah available? So Deborah was zooming in. So I just wonder if I could refer that question to Deborah, if you're there, please.
Through the chair, the UAGC from memory was at 770, but I'll have to double check that. It has gone down to $701 inclusive of GST. And the cap rate for the value of fixed rates, fixed rates is at, we just did that a moment ago, is at 21.9% when we have a limit of 30.
Oh, good. Yep. Thank you. That answers the question. It's great.
Excellent. Okay, I'm just going to move to the community board chairs in case that there is some information they'd like to share with us about their strategic directions. Jo, would you like to go first?
Yes, thank you. And thank you very much for the speaking rights. Any opportunity that we have as a board to come and speak to you is really appreciated. So thank you. We have been working to develop some strategic priorities that we want to work on and focus and advocate on for the next 3 years. We only recently finalised these, so they haven't been circulated to you yet, but we certainly will do that. We understand these are LTP projects and that the time to engage with the community will be through the development of the next LTP. So our focus is really on the livability of Cambridge, and our strategic priorities really reflect our purpose of advocating for Cambridge to be a great town to live in. Our first priority and absolutely top of our list is to see a new library community hub in the next LTP. Although functional and one of our most used community services, we really feel like our current library isn't fit for our growing town, and the opportunity to create a new facility and integrate other community services with the associated community hub is really preferable. We've already met with Brad, Ward and library staff, and our intention is to engage with our community and encourage community feedback on this issue into our Huaki and also into the 2024-34 LTP. Our next priority is urban mobility, but specifically Shakespeare Street. We're really pleased and excited to see the changes that will be made through the CBD from that SURF fund, but we really feel that our community is asking us for improved safety on Shakespeare Street, specifically for school children travelling to and from school. We'd like to see safer and better connected access into the of active mobility into that existing network. Again, the community will be encouraged to feed their thoughts into our Hoaki Waipa Community Spatial Plan. A people-friendly CBD is our next priority. Our goal is to promote a vibrant and connected CBD, a really exciting and inspired public ground that encourages people to it, not just to whip in and out, but to stay and enjoy. Comfortable seating, the introduction of more play spaces, a town centre with history and culture and easy living all rolled into one. This builds on the work that was undertaken in the Cambridge Town Concept Plan refresh. The Cambridge Community Board viewed the Town Hall as a significant Cambridge asset that is a wide benefit to the community, its many diverse groups and events. We acknowledge that the Town Hall will need significant ongoing support, and we see Council's proposed funding as necessary and timely. As upgrades and improvements are made to the Town Hall, we believe it will bring an increased number of event opportunities to Cambridge, therefore becoming an even more important and valuable asset to our community. Although the CCB see the benefit of a sports hall of fame, and the idea is certainly a positive one, we are concerned that committing the requested amount of unplanned ratepayer funds at this uncertain economic time on such a project without having first connected with our wide community is perhaps not prudent. Finally, we see rural connections as being something we need to prioritise and improve on. We want to completely refresh our rural tour concept and increase communication with rural schools and marae. Through this improved communication, we want to encourage this rural community to feed their ideas and opinions into our Hoaki. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo. Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah. Oh, Jo said that at the start that she would out their strategic planning. And should you? I mean, you're welcome to say something. You don't have to, but yeah, you're welcome to have speaking rights as well.
Cool. So thank you very much. And why not make the most of this opportunity? So unlike Jo, I wasn't so much focused on the strategic plan, but I can just make a couple of comments. We're not quite as organised as Cambridge, so we're still just tidying ours up and refining it a little bit. But I would just like to share that one of the really big things for us is to have a lot more visibility in our community. So we've been currently working on our vision statement, and it's looking something along the lines of that the Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board is a trusted, respected and well-utilised organisation / vehicle for the communities of Te Awamutu, Kihikihi and Kakapuku to enable them to direct and influence the shape of their spaces and communities. So that profile side of it is a really important part. But we're also obviously very conscious of moving along projects. I won't get too sidetracked with that at the moment, but once they are ready, we will bring that document back to you and share it with you. But like Jo, you know, it's about the livability of our town and safety. So, you know, like still high on our priority list is to try and get a footpath down from McDonald's down into that George Street car park. It's a busy little space down there, and I think that's been sitting there for about 10 years. I believe where we've written to the annual plan, submitted to the annual plan, sorry, no budget for that. And so that's a little bit of a frustration, but you know, we'll plug on. But just in regard to the annual plan, I did just want to highlight in regard to, you know, a fairly significant increase. I'll just quickly find my email. Sorry, I just need to pull this back up. I had it open and then it's gone and jumped away on me. Sorry, 2 moments. So the 5.9 or now 6%, Ken, obviously is very close to the 6.3 where you would consult. And we just wanted to ask that, so the original rates increase was planned for 3.7. So what mitigating spend has been considered to keep the rate increase as close as possible to the original 3.7%? Asset sales, reduction in unnecessary spending, for examples, an additional 2.2% increase is actually going to be really difficult for some of our community to afford. And just at that point, you know, when we put the rates up, when we're in a privileged position, you know, a small rate increase doesn't really make too much difference. but sometimes I think we forget the flow down effect of that. So it's not just our rates, it's actually rent goes up. And people are really struggling. You know, like I just noticed the other day, the cheap chips, they were $1.50. They've jumped up 50 cents to $2. Yes, they're a don't have to have item, but a 50-cent increase in one hit. You know, you go to buy a lettuce, it's $6. Our families are really struggling. So I can speak from my mahi at Kainga Aroha Community House. We generally are seeing 6 to 7 food parcels every single day. So people are really feeling it. So I just want to speak on behalf of those people that do struggle out there in our community. And if there are any places that we can trim it back a few percent and just hold off on some things. So I noted down a couple of things. So the playgrounds, for example, you know, like as part of our development, we've got a lovely new playground happening at Highfield. I presume there's probably going to be at least a couple that need to go in up at Frontier Estate. So do we need to spend $400,000 on the playground at Memorial Park right now? I know I've talked to staff about this and they're adamant that it's shot and it does. Well, I've gone back down there again and I reckon we could squeeze another couple of years out of it. And I know it's not a big amount, but are there a number of those things that could make a difference? So that's one of the things that we are asking. In regard to the sports museum, I took all what Joe's saying. I think that, and I would expect our community, obviously we haven't had time to ask the community, but I think they do need to be asked. $750,000 is a significant amount of money to be asking for right now. I mean, if things were really flush, maybe it's a little bit different, but it also brings me to where do we draw the line in that space? You know, my partner Dave runs the Space Centre, so we bring people from Auckland, from all over the country. We even have international visitors coming. So, you know, should we be coming to council and asking for $750,000 to support our business? Yes, we provide an economic benefit, as will that museum. So it's just asking, where is that line? I think that probably pretty much covers what our feeling is. Yes, we still want to support things for the community. We don't want to be saying, don't do anything to keep improving, because I understand, you know, you've got to keep that momentum moving. I would like to also just acknowledge the staff as well. That is one meaty document that you guys have to put together, and also councillors. It's a lot of reading, so thank you for doing that day in and day out, because you guys do have a huge job. But thank you again for letting us have this opportunity, and it's much appreciated.
Thanks, Ange. Hey, look, thank you to both of you. I think your perspectives are really, you know, are really helpful around the table while we're making these kind of really important decisions for our community. So yeah, appreciate your time this morning. Okay, I'll open up the floor now to questions from councillors. Philip.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and welcome to the two chairpersons of the community board. It's great to see you here. So just going to page 55 of the agenda, we've got variances and stuff like that there. Can you just quickly go over a couple of those, particularly around Victoria Bridge, the painting there? Is it an increase? It's quite a huge increase there.
Yeah, so through the chair, Councillor Coles, I believe, and I'm just looking at page 55, not too close to that project, but look, it looks like that is actually a deferral from 22-23. So yeah, so that $1.5 million was probably budgeted in the current year, will not be spent, so has shifted years into the annual plan. So this is not a cost increase; it's actually a shift in the timing of the funding.
Yeah, and would that relate to some of the other variances there too? I see there's some others that have been deferred.
Yeah, yes. So where you're saying the word deferral, well, yeah, that is talking about a shift from the current year into the annual plan.
Yeah, but what about the one for the growth cells there in Hautapu? net increase?
Yeah, so again, possibly timing. I mean, there might be a chance that, I mean, Tony, are you able just to comment on the timing there? Because that is quite a large number in terms of $7.5 million.
Yep, so through the chair, that is tied to the CTN gross sale and also tied to one of the basins that we had available to purchase in the C8 gross sale. So to comply with our structure plan, land was made available from the willing buyer, willing seller of Richard Hannon. So we went through that process to acquire that land and ensure that we can meet that gross sale. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions? Claire?
Yes, thanks. Thanks for sending through the responses to the questions. And I'd just like to give some feedback on those responses, I guess, for the questions that I asked. The first one was the Pirongia Skate Park, which has been deferred. Could there be a comment in the annual plan about that? Because, I mean, I just picked it up that it wasn't there. So just to say why it's not, planned for that particular, for our current year, I think it would be helpful if people in that community are seeking, information about where it's at. That'd be really good. And then for the Cambridge Town Hall, it's mentioned that the extra funding, it's justified and it's important, I suppose, activity, to be getting a good start to, and that we would be able to review the outcomes of that. So I'm just really keen to have good reporting on it, that we'd like to see, what the difference that extra funding has made, particularly for that general manager role, I guess, or those other staff roles. And so things like a comparison of baseline bookings, or I'd really be keen on having some third party or independent comment rather than simply the trust saying it's fantastic to have these people working for us. I'd really like to see some good reporting on it. And then lastly, I did request that the big increase in the support services expenses for vehicles and electricity could be separated out so we could see what it was. So not necessarily reported, but I'm quite keen to understand why there's such a big increase, whether it's electricity, whether it's vehicles. I was wondering if it's because, there's been a push for councils to demonstrate commitment to sustainability and reducing emissions by purchasing electric vehicles. I wondered if that might have been it. So I would like to understand a bit more, if possible. Yeah. Thanks. So not necessarily having it detailed in the annual report, because you're obviously following, the frameworks that you're given for reporting, but just as a matter of interest. Thanks.
Okay, so so through the chair, if I could just respond to a couple of those things. So first up, I guess the annual plan is a live document for the next few months. So the annual plan does not need to be adopted until the end of June. So look, there were several things that came through in those questions that we've committed to to changing, updating. So we'll certainly take any of those other comments on board. And in regard to the Cambridge Town Hall, look, I know that their trust and in fact have already demonstrated this in their very short time of existence, are more than willing to to come in and report regularly to the Finance and Corporate Committee. So so we have talked about that being twice a year. We will follow through on that. But they're very happy to very happy to engage. So yes, I think you'll be able to see some regular progress. Your comments about benchmarking current usage, so that we can sort of track how that's going over time. I'll certainly pass those comments on. I personally meet monthly with the trust, so or at least representatives of the trust. So happy to do that.
Thank you, Ken. Roger.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'd like to support Claire's comments on the funding to the Cambridge Town Hall. I agree totally with the energies that's been put in there, but I would really like to see some accountability factors against which we can gain assurance that the money has been spent to aspects of the town hall which are in line with the proposal. I mean, to be honest, we know that some of the money is going to have to be spent on refurbishment, but we're not actually seeing any progress in that. So I'd really like to see some, before they accept the money, you know, we need to have more detail as to where that money is going to be spent.
Yeah, so I think, as Ken said, we're going to be having regular reporting back into our finance committee, and with Ken meeting monthly, I'm sure that those comments can make their way back to that trust board as well. But I don't think we should. I think we have numerous opportunities to feed into that group, and I know there's a lot of interest. I mean, the town hall is pretty special, so I absolutely appreciate the interest that councillors are showing, and I think with Ken's personal meetings with them monthly, let's just continue to support them in every way that we possibly can, and understand that it is very early days. General manager's just got his feet on the ground, so let's watch this with interest and support them. I'm really excited to see the future of that facility.
Madam Chair, just in response to that, and I appreciate the regularity of those meetings, but they are retrospective, and they're coming back and telling us what they've done, whereas there's nothing being established front up that says we expect that performance to be forthcoming.
Okay,
So
I hear
can
your
you see the
comments.
difference?
Yes, I absolutely can, and I think Ken will take that on board. And we'll definitely keep moving in a positive direction. So let's just let the trust here do their work as well, and look forward to seeing them again quite soon. So look, we've got a recommendation on the. Oh, sorry, Councillor Brown, would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. I just want to congratulate our team on a job well done. But I did want to respond to particularly your comments, Ange, which you know I think we all around here totally understand. It is particularly people on fixed incomes are going to find it quite difficult. But as you did allude to, the conflict we have is between levels of service and rates rises, and it's really pretty much as simple as that. Although, you know, like the comments you made about some specific spending, I think, you know, we will take on board. I just did want to say that prior to Christmas, when the staff did the first cut on the projected annual plan for the coming year, I think we were looking at 12 or 13% increases. The budgets have really been examined in detail, and you know, to come up to where we are has been a real achievement. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for that. I think that's absolutely correct. So it's always a work in progress, that's for sure. And yeah, I think we're pretty rapt that we've landed where we have so far. Okay, are there any other councillor? You're happy to move the recommendations A, B, C, and D. Do I have a seconder, please? Oh,
I'll second. I just wanted to add to what Councillor Brown just said. I mean, I think it's to have a rate increase in single figures. There's a lot of other councils that are in double figures, and the only reason they're in double figures is they haven't kept up with the state of play over many years. And they've all of a sudden they've got to have a big catch up, and in order to do that, they have to continuously have double figures. So for us to come up with a rate increase still in the single figures is a success, even though it is difficult for some people. Any increase is difficult for some people. So yeah, so I say well done to previous councils and staff and everything for all the work they've done over many years to keep it to where it is, still under the rate of inflation, current rate of inflation.
Ken, and then Roger.
Look, just through the chair, just another observation on that count in terms of the rates increase. So look, we did manage to absorb inflationary pressure in the current year. Councillors may well remember a staff recommendation at this point last year when we were preparing an annual plan that we didn't need to push up because interest rates were already increasing. The inflation was quite evident. But we managed to hold to the LTP last year. Obviously, you can't do that forever. So we are seeing an increase over and above the LTP this year. But we did hold firm last time, and in fact, that's required quite an effort right across the organisation in terms of absorbing that impact.
Roger.
Yeah, thank you. Just further a couple of questions I sent through. Maybe I can ask that. Then I noticed when we look at the sample properties, at the back of the report, or we look at the extension, and I understand it makes sense.
Excuse me, Roger, can you put your microphone on, please? Start again.
Thank you. Regarding the sample properties and the rating analysis at the end of the annual plan, and I acknowledge the fact that the valuation information we've got is draft and that there may be some changes beforehand. But in just doing a little bit of analysis, I see that very much the increase, when we talked about a 5.9 or a 6% overall increase, but in fact, if you look at the urban properties, then it tends to be very much an increase that's more than 6% on some of those urban properties. In fact, in some cases, it's above 10, some 13%. And when you look very much at the rural properties, then the rural properties tend to be far less impacted by those valuations. In fact, in some cases, their rates actually go down. So there's a negative factor. Is there any method or tool that we have that actually varies the allocation of rates between rural and urban properties to see if we can mitigate some of those higher increases in urban properties?
Sorry,
and
Roger.
I also realise that the rural quantum is a lot less. Like
Sorry,
in some of those areas.
I think that's been covered. We've already discussed that. So that was the rate that Ken talked about earlier, the smoothing.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, is that as much mitigation that we can achieve?
Yes.
Yes, it is really. So so we need to be careful in that regard because look, every 3 years as part of the LTP, you as councillors determine a revenue and financing policy, and that essentially is who pays for what. So that's quite a rigorous process we work through there. So look, we don't like to interfere with that too much. In my introductory comments, I did talk about how we have slid the UAGC a little bit to provide a bit of relief, but I did also quite clearly say that look, you will see elevated rates increases in the residential and the commercial and the industrial sectors, and that you would see decreases in some of those farming properties, and in fact that comes through quite clearly in those tables. Through the chair, one thing I would note is I'm not seeing double figure percentage increases for residential properties. You mentioned double figure, but we're not. So I'm looking at Cambridge Ward residential. This is on page 110 of the document, and what I'm saying is like for a lower valued Cambridge Ward property, a 4.6% increase, mid-range property 6.4%, and then a higher value property, in fact a 1 $21.6 million valuation. I'm seeing 7.1%. And I think very much if you go over another page to Te Awamutu, again, you're seeing, you're certainly not seeing double digits. And look, those indicated properties do really illustrate what's happening here. So if you're looking at the residential properties, and again, I go back to the first example, the Cambridge residential, you're seeing property valuation increases of 44.6% and 50%. If you look over a page or two to some of the rural properties, so the bottom of page, what page is this, 111? So Parongia Ward rural. So you're seeing properties between 1 million and 7 million, and you're seeing property valuation increases of only around 20% versus the 50% in an urban residential community. That is what is causing the shift of incidence. It's the different sectors having quite different increases in property value.
Yeah. Just explaining where I did get it from, and it was in the rural residential Cambridge. That's Cambridge Ward, and it's the newer bank of properties that's been established that actually are really urban Cambridge, but they're add-ons. And actually, there's 2,080 properties in that bank, and in fact, the increase there is 13.9%. So I'm sorry that you can't understand why you couldn't see it, but there are some properties that are increasing by double digits. But all right,
yes,
I take your point. And just moving on, if I could, the breakdown of the targeted rates that we see in there, the Cambridge Ward targeted rate, does that figure of, just scroll back again. Sorry, I need to go back to targeted rates. So that figure of 376.77 on the targeted rate for Cambridge, does that include, or not include yet because we haven't approved it, the allocation of the funding to the Cambridge Town Hall? Or is that likely to therefore increase that amount?
So look, Deborah, I might need to call on you on that, but actually, sorry, Councillor, the $376 you're referring to, sorry, where is that coming from?
That is on page 68 of 77 of the annual plan, where it talks about targeted rates.
Through the chair, I can answer that. It's on page 103 of your agenda. The 376.77 inclusive of GST is the rate for the Cambridge area, and that does include the $110,000 that was indicated. We did make that adjustment.
Okay.
If the resolution goes through.
So can I ask? Can I ask?
Sorry, my apologies. Can I just double check to make sure that is correct?
The other question that I have then, which is relevant to that, which you might check at the same time, does the same inclusion also apply, whether it be to targeted rates or to general rates, of all the other proposed granting that are mentioned at the beginning that we're supposed to be considering at this meeting? I mean, have you assumed that they're all going to go through and therefore you've... No,
that certainly wouldn't be the case because there's no recommendation. But I think we'll let Deborah just take a moment for her to check whether the town hall is included or not included in that targeted ward rate. So we'll come back to you shortly, Deborah, if that's okay. Claire.
Yeah, thanks. Look, I just wanted to comment on Roger's concern about the percentage increases, that Cambridge residents are suffering, because of the revaluation. Like this has happened, quite regularly over our history. Because I can recall being around the table when the rural properties actually saw massive increases, and we had an outcry from our rural communities. Hey guys, this is really difficult for us. Is there any way you can smooth it? You know, and so, you know, it's just the swings and the roundabouts. And we do take a lot of care with our revenue and financing policy to try and make it as fair as possible. Yeah. And yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is, you know, we've seen this kind of thing before, and it hits different parts of our communities in different ways over time.
Can I make a point of clarification there? I did not initially talk about the Cambridge urban increase. I talked about all urban increase, including Te Awamutu.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the Cambridge only.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, I'm just going to let Gary just take the microphone for just a moment.
So yes, just while Deborah's thinking, when these revaluations occur, they will change the incidence of rents quite dramatically. And when we look at the difference in increase in property values between commercial, industrial, and residential versus rural, that's what we're striking here. And to Claire's point, when this happened a number of years ago, what we decided to do was we took the revaluation cycle out of sync with a change to the LTP, which also brought with it significant changes to policies and processes and financing arrangements. So these things do happen to the extent that we use tools to mitigate them. We've got the change to the fixed charge, which is 30%. Obviously, fixed charges favour higher capital value properties. But critically, what we have done is we've also taken these valuation changes out of sync with all the various policy changes we get through an LTP process. So those are the two sort of major tools we've had in our toolbox.
Thank you, Gary. I'm just going to
questions.
Yeah, can I just let some of the other councillors have a turn, because Mike's been waiting very patiently. Peter, are yours has been answered? Okay, Claire, and then we'll come back to you, Roger.
I just wanted to say, sorry, Roger, it was just that I remembered the examples that were quoted by Ken with Cambridge ones. That's the only reason that I said Cambridge.
Yes, and I just wanted to support you on that, Claire. I think those have been, ours have been sitting around the table a wee bit longer. I think we almost had a tractor parade, didn't we, up our stairs when the rural rates were about to skyrocket. So it definitely is swings and roundabouts. And I guess, you know, we take that over a long period of time. Ken, and then, yeah, we'll come back to you, Roger, for another question.
Yes, so look, I just wanted to draw your attention, Chair, that Deborah has now got an answer. So perhaps if we can just go back to Deborah.
Through the Chair, the annual plan document, which has the Cambridge targeted area rate at $376.77 inclusive, is based on the 5.9%. It is not including the $110,000 that is part of the resolution. To include that 110, which we did to get some indication of the impact, that rate will go up to $390.15, inclusive of GST. So if that part of the resolution goes ahead, we will be updating this document fairly quickly to get the document including up to that 6% rate increase average.
Thank you, Deborah. That's very helpful. Okay.
Good, that is. Thank you very much, Deborah. Yep. A couple of other questions, if I may. One of the things that I notice, there was an amount of 750,000 in the LTP that was towards some development of the Cambridge Museum. Now, I just noticed that in this report, that has actually been taken out of the funding. So it's been dropped from the annual plan, it's been dropped from the LTP. Now, I can't remember any discussion around the table that should, in fact, be dropped.
Okay, Ken, I'll let you respond to that?
Yeah. So through the chair, look, it was not included in the annual plan because we knew with absolute certainty that that it wasn't going to proceed. And look, I believe that I just can't quite recall the forum, but I can definitely recall Sally Sheedy talking to that at some point in the chamber, like quite possibly up to a year ago, when essentially the fundraising efforts ceased for ceased for that matter. But look, there was absolutely no point keeping that $750,000 in an annual plan. We knew it wasn't going to be spent. However, what I did say to you last night, the councillor, and those responses is that if there is a project involving the Cambridge Museum that comes through the LTP process, so that's where that would come in. And I mean, it's been granted $750,000 before. It could well be accommodated into the future, but there would need to be a substantive plan to spend the money, and that hasn't been the case for the last year or two.
I acknowledge the discussion at the time that said that project was not going to go ahead. Fine. My perception was that money would be retained in future years of the LTP, unless, on the chance that it may be lifted at some time in the future. But anyway, what you've clarified is that it has been removed, and that then if that entity was to see some development, maybe in line with the library or something like that, they would have to start from scratch in terms of putting in a proposal for LTP funding. Yeah, that clarifies that.
Yeah, so through the chair, just to be clear, I mean, it's still, the 750 is still in the LTP, but of course it wasn't spent in year 1 or 2 of the LTP. Sorry, in year 1 or 2, and we're just working on the annual plan for year 3 of the LTP, and it's not going to be spent this year. So it's not like it's been removed from the LTP. We certainly haven't removed it from the LTP. It just does not feature in the annual plan because there are no plans to
Can I just ask for a clarification of that, because that's not what I thought. I got the answer to my question. What you're saying is that 750 of a future fund availability is still in the LTP, even though it is not in this year's annual plan. So when we come to the discussion of the LTP next year, then that will come up for discussion as to whether it's retained or whether, currently it's still in the LTP.
Yes, absolutely. It is still in the LTP. I think the point that I was trying to make in the email last night, Councillor, is that effectively this annual plan that you're looking to adopt in June is effectively year 3 of the current LTP, and then basically that's history, isn't it? A new LTP will be determined over the course of the 23-24 year, and we need to see what's happening potentially in the Cambridge Museum space to determine whether the funding is re-included in the new LTP, but it certainly was in this document.
Okay, I think that's very clear. I think we've resolved that matter now. Are there any other questions on other matters?
I'm really sorry about this, but I clearly remember it being removed at the time of the LTP discussions. I'm not sure if Roger was present. I remember Mike declaring a conflict of interest and not commenting or not being included in the discussion. But I actually, because the proposal was for it to be shifted to another Cambridge project, and I thought the determination by the group was not to have it in the LTP at all.
Okay, well, look, when we come to our LTP matters, we will certainly address this. But I think in terms of this agenda, we'll move on as we're discussing the annual plan.
So respecting Claire's memory, could we perhaps seek clarification on that point?
We certainly will.
Yeah, because obviously there's some difference in memory there.
Okay, are there any other annual plan matters?
Yes, sorry. My last one is we had discussion a month ago about the news media report on Te Arawai that stated a $27 million project cost now, and quite rightly, the decision was to put it back to the TROI governance group, which would then report to us on the perceived large increase of cost on that project. And I agree that going back to TROI is the place that it should be, but we don't know what the outcome of any of that discussions are at this stage. It could be 26, it could be more than 27 million, it could be less than 27 million. If it is somewhere north of that, then obviously council will need to discuss whether or not that project goes ahead. But the annual plan recognizes that the build cost is no longer going to occur in that year, but it does see a continuation of the design cost. And I'm wondering whether the commitment to the design cost is putting a little bit the cart before the horse, or still continuing investing in the project when we have a little bit of a question mark over the overall funding of that.
Thank you, Roger. Yes, I absolutely understand your question. I'm looking for comments from staff, or Councillor Brown.
Yeah. So TROI committee is not met, so there is no update that's available, I guess, at this point. I'd just like to make the point that even if the cost of the project is higher and considerably higher, the amount of funding in the LTP remains the same. So we would, for the project to go ahead in the current LTP that stands, we'd have to find other ways of meeting the increase. So that's number one. The second one is, if we don't go ahead with design and at least a decent scope of works, then we don't know what the increase is actually going to be. So I guess the thing is that this project was included in the last LTP because it was seen as being a very important, significant project for certainly Te Awamutu, but the district as a whole as well. So that's where it sits.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'd just like to make a request, though, subject to that, is may we have in the annual plan a dollar figure as to how much is going to be invested in design, so that we're aware of that, so it becomes quite transparent.
Yeah, okay, I am, absolutely. I think that's a very reasonable request. So I'm sure staff can make that happen. Councillor Pettit?
Just back to the rates increase, just a comment in, I guess, perspective, because out in the rural residential sort of area, and Roger's alluded to it, 13.1% increase as of this document. But I guess one has to also look at, that's based on a property of $1.8 million. So 3 years ago, that property was $1.2 million. You're going to pay over 3 years another sort of $1,100 in rates, but you've made a capital value of 600. So I guess people just have to understand that, there's pros and cons to having properties in certain areas. And as been alluded to before, every LTP, someone sort of pays, for whatever reason, a little bit more. But it's about going over the average of what the increases have been in Waipa, and fortunately and unfortunately, the rural residential ratepayers of Cambridge will end up paying a little bit more because their capital value has gone up extraordinarily.
Thank you. Yep, no, that's right. Okay, are there any other queries? I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. Just to remind everybody that we've got A, B, C and D, and we had Marcus move it, we had Philip second it. Yes.
Thank you.
Only if you put your microphone on.
See, I'm sorry, I've got a booming voice anyway, so, but take your point. I should. put it on. If we pass this recommendation, does that then include all of the approvals of the different funding requests? Or
No.
it only approves the funding request of the Cambridge Town Hall?
Correct. The recommendation is that the only funding request that gets approved is recommendation B, is the Cambridge Town Hall.
Thank you.
If everyone's happy with the recommendations, we've got a mover and a seconder. Happy to put the motion to the floor. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, everybody. Now, if everyone's happy, we might just sneak another item through before morning tea. Graham is in the room and we've got our fees and charges item. Again, my thanks to Angela and Joe, for attending this morning. You're welcome to join us for morning tea soon. All right, so we've got our draft fees and charges here. Graham is going to present this item. Thank you, Graham. Good morning.
Good morning. You'll notice how I'm working through the alphabet. I've gone from B's to fees. Let me just log in and I'll get my agenda up here. Agenda, and I'm good to go. Right. Okay, thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. This item is to hopefully seek the committee's approval to consult on the draft schedule of fees and charges for 2023-24. That's Appendix 1 to the report and the associated statement of proposal. That's Appendix 2. Consultation plan from the 14th of March to the 14th of April, using the council libraries and offices as standard, council's website and social media alerts. The main point I'd like to state is that most fees you'll see have been held at current levels. One or two increases as highlighted in red and some decreases highlighted in green, including the removal of library charges for overdue items, which would make our libraries fines free if that was to be adopted. I'm quite happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Graham. Okay, we've got questions, Susan.
Thank you, Graham. I'm just a bit perplexed. I need to understand why we've added the erection of marquees of any size. I'm trying to understand, mainly because I regularly erect a marquee for the occasional do at my house. Well,
sorry, I'm told by our building team that marquees should be in there anyway and have been in the past. Somehow they got dropped at some point. I'm also told that most people, although they're supposed to get inspections, don't. And by the time anyone realizes the marquees have been removed again, because they're obviously only temporary. I understand that the inspections are really for things like health and safety, that they've been erected properly and that they're not going to fall on people inside and that the fire exits are correct and so on. So should anyone actually ask for an inspection, we do have fees to cover that and recover our costs.
If that's the case, shouldn't we have bouncy castles there as well? Because they can blow away. I mean, it seems rather unusual, that's all. And common sense is not really being applied to that one, but I appreciate your explanation under the Building Act. Thanks, Karen.
Okay, other question, Lou?
Madam Chair, I was quite concerned about that. In fact, you raised an issue. I actually organise quite a number of events, and particularly at places like Albert Park and other things, where when you quantify what is a marquee, is there a size to it? Or is this a small gazebo, such as we raised yesterday out of Tupahu? What are we actually talking about? You have to quantify this a little bit better. Marquee is a very big overview, and I would say you're adding costs to an already pressurised section of people trying to organise things for community. And we have things at Selwyn Park and all sorts of places where we've done it ourselves. I mean, we raised a marquee when we actually had the new clothes put up for people of recognising people in Te Awamutu for the Walk of Fame. All of these things, I just wanted to get this quantified in my own mind. You had me concerned, actually.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think we need to seek further clarification on this. I guess from an events perspective, traditionally, a marquee, when I'm in my world, is a 10 by 15. Once you reach that size, it sort of moves into that marquee sort of category. It was anything kind of smaller than that tends to be more of a gazebo. But I appreciate it depends on the structure, and it depends on the quality of materials that are used. So there could well be a definition that's less than the size I've just mentioned. So I think that what we do is we are going to go to Joe Greed, because I believe that there is an amendment to that. Is that correct, Joe?
I've currently got one for minor typographical errors that would, so if you want something put in there, could elaborate on exactly what you're seeking.
I'd be reluctant to do that until we've heard from the building team, because I don't want to mess with something and have an unintended consequence. But Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I think we should do that, because presumably we have a responsibility that these are erected correctly and not going to cause injury or harm to property or whatever. Otherwise, why have it in there?
That's exactly right. So what I'm going to suggest is we break for morning tea. We're only a couple of minutes away, and perhaps over the next few minutes for morning tea break, we can check with our building team, and we'll continue this item then if that's satisfactory to everybody. All right, let's meet back at 10:30. Okay, everybody, we'll resume our meeting. So we are continuing our draft schedule of fees and charges, our considerations around that. So we've got Wayne, who's going to come back to us on the marquee suggestion.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Councillors. So the correct question here regard to marquee correction size. So we'll be clear that this is a issue under the Building Act. So we're out.
Yeah, there we go. You're
Okay.
live.
So I'll
Thank
just
you.
start again. So good question raised by councillors. So what we'll do is actually remove the words any size, but this is under the Building Act and we don't require building consents for marquees anything less than 200 metres squared. So the bouncy castles, the small marquees, we're not requiring a building consent and therefore no fees are applied. If they are over 200 metres squared, of course, the reasons why we require a consent is to consider matters of security and safety of people attending within the marquee structure, fire evacuation requirements, numbers of people attending within the structure. So hopefully that will make it a bit more clearer. People can still apply for building consents for less than 200 metres squared, but in terms of our exemption, we don't require it.
That is perfectly clear. Thank you very much for that clarification. So, Monty? Yep.
Yeah, just a question on that, particularly thinking about the field days. You know, a lot of big marquees out there, it's a really core part of their business. Have they been applying for these consents?
My understanding is yes, if they are over that 200 metres squared, then marquee requirements, building consent requirements are sought and obtained.
Yeah, look, I could probably say a previous staff member there that their standard and their standards out at Mystery Creek are very exemplary, and there'd be no question at all that they would be applying for consents and would be right to the letter of the law. I'm absolutely certain of that. Okay, so Roger, you've got a question?
I have indeed, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. Graham, can I direct you to page 125 of our report? What is it of yours? I can't remember. And I see the new fees that are mentioned there and highlighted in yellow for multi-unit dwelling. My assumption is that this is in there to reflect the new densification legislation that is coming through. As an example, let's take that 16 multi-unit dwelling, 2 stories or more. First unit has fees above and then per unit charge. If it was a 3x3 that had 9 units in total on that site, does that mean it would be 1440 plus 8 by $180, which is another $1,440. I mean, I'm probably
that's certainly how I'm reading it. That's certainly how I'm reading it.
Yes, and I would support
Wayne might be able to.
I just need a clarification.
I would probably read it the same. I'm not part of the building team, though, putting this forward. Wayne's not got anything further to add either, I believe. So,
can we just have clarification of that sometime?
Yeah, we can get you clarification. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Roger.
Certainly, all of this will come up again once we've gone through all the hearings and everything. So we've got a second bite at all of this.
Absolutely. So yeah, so we've got a recommendation in front of us. If there are no other queries, yes, okay, Marcus.
I just have one query about the penalty fees on rates, how it's going to be increased back up to 10%. With Angela's comments about people struggling to pay rate, well, just struggling with costs of things. If we put the rates back up to 10%, the penalty, who is that going to be impacting and hurting the most? Like, who owes us money at the moment for rates? Is it big corporations, or is it small lot holders, or what's happening around there?
Sorry, councillor, I don't have that information. We can try and get back to you on that.
Yeah, we can come back. Oh, Ken is coming to the microphone. Excellent.
My apologies, I was only actually half listening into the conversation from the back row there, but sorry, there's a question about rates, penalties moving
Well, basically going back
three back to 10.
Three back to 10.
Yes.
Who is that going to impact? Like, because with Angela's comments about prices going up and affordability of things, is it going to be impacting people who just literally cannot afford to pay rates, or is it going to be impacting corporations or whoever just not playing?
So look, we do report on the rates collection at every finance and corporate committee meeting, and look, there really is there've been no discernible impact on on rates collection. So rates collection is strong. So look, I don't know if this is going to adversely impact any sector of the community, but it is a very strong incentive, obviously, for people to actually pay their rates. So so that's so we haven't we've dropped down to 3% for 2 years. That was very much a COVID response, where we're now we're pushing back up to the 10%.
Okay. Did anyone else have any other questions? No? Okay, so we've got a recommendation here, A, B, and C, obviously going up for public consultation of these draft schedule of fees and charges. I'd just like to take your attention to the screen. We've got an amendment to B and C. So if everyone is happy with those, I'll give you a minute to read it, and then we'll move to a recommendation. A question from Mike.
Just a comment there. Look, if it's 200 square metres for the marquee, I understand any size we take out, but any Joe public reading that is, I'm sure it's somewhere else, it says 200 square metres, but wouldn't it pay to put it in there just to make it black and white, or not?
So as I said, it's under the Building Act requirements that we have an exemption for anything 200 square metres or less, but people can still apply to request a building consent for under 200 metres squared, and therefore we still want the opportunity to charge people if they want a building consent. So I didn't really want to put in specific over 200 square metres, because if someone actually makes an application, then under that regime we wouldn't be able to charge anything.
So could it be compulsory from 200 square metres to make it clear for the public?
We can put a note in there. Perhaps that might be easier. We put a note in there saying we don't require a building consent for anything under 200 metres squared, but persons may still apply. How's that?
Okay, look, that sounds sensible. Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder, please? So Councillor Andrew Brown is going to move it, and Councillor Roger Gordon is going to second it. All in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, thank you, everybody. Right, we'll move on to the determination to review the Waipa District Public Places Bylaw 2018. It feels like we've only just done this, but we are, must have been 5 years, I guess. So Graham, and welcome Diana to the table. I will pass over to you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. As you say, it is 5 years since we did this. It was one of the first projects I started on here. So here we go again. So this item is the first report in the Local Government Act process for reviewing a bylaw, asking as to whether the committee would like us to review the bylaw, or whether we're just going to let the bylaw go and eventually it will lapse. So the recommendation is that you approve a review of Council's Public Places bylaw. And also as Appendix 1 is a list of issues that are currently in the bylaw and we think should be retained, we as staff think should be retained, and some issues that we think should be added, or others that we think maybe we don't. So asking you to approve that list as well. as part of the process, we're thinking that we'll come back to you with a draft of the bylaw and workshop that. So any particular issues, we've got a chance to work through whether it's going to work or not, whether we've got any loopholes in there that you spot and all those kind of things. This is assuming, of course, that you approve the review going forward. So I'll take the rest of the report as read, and we're happy to respond to any questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Graham. I know that this particular bylaw, and there's always a lot of public interest in it. And I think the going out for consultation is obviously the right thing to do. I'm interested in any comments or suggestions, changes to the list that is on there.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. And my apologies. First of all, I concentrated on reading the annual plan, which took me a fair while. Can I just ask a question? This public places bylaw actually includes a consideration of street vending and street vendors. And
mobile traders, yes.
And that will be up for review as well. Yeah, good.
Yes, that's
yeah, there's a very good list on page 184 of our agenda, and I think it does cover most things. But again, if we've missed something, certainly I know that we will be able to reconsider it as part of that bylaw process. Lou.
I think it's a very, very important thing to keep it and maintain it. We've passed this, and if we don't actually renew it prior to its expiry, it will actually elapse. So I think it has a valid place within our community. And we've just passed a law just recently limiting the use of some of our rural roads. So I would move that we accept this and send it out to have consultation.
Thank you, Lou. Okay, so you're moving A, B and C, and anyone to second it? Thank you, Councillor Coles. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Okay, lovely. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Graham. Thanks, Diana. Okay, we're going to move on to our Sainsbury Road Reserve Management Plan for public consultation. Claire will be delighted that this is on the agenda. Right, I'd like to welcome Amanda and Hayden, that's right, sorry. Okay, welcome both. Good to have you here. I'll pass over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Kia ora koutou. And yeah, a lot of you will know that this has had a long history, dating back to 2015. So we're very excited to be able to bring this draft reserve management plan to you today in order to hopefully get it up for consultation and seek community feedback on it. So we've got Amanda Banks here. She's council's consultant that has been engaged to lead this project and has prepared the report. I'll hand over to Amanda.
Morena koutou. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, it's great to be able to bring this back to council, hopefully for adoption today. I'd just like to acknowledge Bill Harris and Tia Ormsby from Ngāti Apakura, who are in the room here today with us. Also just like to acknowledge the focus group who were involved last year in 3 meetings, they were a bunch of folks, mana whenua, some folks from the Pirongia Horse Riding Club, some locals on the road, and there was a couple of others, the graziers. They were all fantastic in the focus groups. We worked together really nicely. They had heaps of local knowledge and provided some sort of pragmatic solutions to some of the things that we were talking about and thinking through. So I'd just like to acknowledge their efforts that they put into this process. Also just that the staff across the organisation, this is not just a project which sits in reserves. We worked with folks across the reserves team, transport, the property group and waters. So it's very much a whole of council sort of perspective on the reserve. And just also wanted to bring your attention to a couple of details which have changed since the report was published. There's a change to the consultation period, so that will be running 23rd of March to 23rd of May. That's if the RMP is adopted today. And the reason that we pushed that out, we were originally hoping to piggyback on the Ahuaki consultation in Pirongia on the 9th of March. But when we sort of scratched our heads a little bit more about that, we thought actually Ahuaki is a big project, district-wide, long-term focus. And we didn't want to confuse the message going with a very site-specific, perhaps shorter-term sort of thing, and we know that that's a big project for council. So hopefully you'll be okay with us pushing that out. And we are also looking at going to the Pirongia market. Our sort of draft comms plan for engagement that we're putting together, I think, is the 30th of April. But we'll let you know about that closer to the time once we've got that firmed up. So happy to take questions.
Thank you very much for that. Any questions on this? Very, very good. Okay. Claire, I see you've been added.
Yeah, I don't really have any questions. I just wanted to congratulate Amanda for leading the work with the focus group, because I attended a few meetings last year and I thought there were diverse interests around the table and I thought it was handled really well. Yeah, they gelled very well under Amanda's gentle care and made good contributions. I just want to thank you for that, and I'm really excited to see it going out for consultation.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Bill, would you like to come on? You need to put the microphone on so that those online can hear you, but happy for you to speak.
Mr. Gordon got a very loud voice. Just, as mana whenua, we're here in support of the plan, and our councillor is presently not here, and the Kanohi reps haven't been decided for this working group either yet, committee. So I beg your indulgence if I was in being able to speak to the committee now, if that was acceptable.
I'm happy with that, actually. What do you want to speak specifically on? Iwi, okay, that's fine. Yep.
So yeah, in regards to mana whenua's position on this plan, yes, I just want to do a big ups to the yapi that we've received from the Pirongia community in regards to the focus groups. One of the big ones was that we were able to supply to that focus group and the consultant a lot of the history in and around Pirongia as the Maunga and its sacred position, and also for us as Ngāti Apakura Hinatu, where it's sat. And a lot of the focus group didn't have that information, so it was really good to get their uppy in regards to that. In the plan, we are talking, because the actual reserve itself was never named. So as Apakura, we are seeking to name it. And one of the big things there is we're looking to name it after Kahu. But our history in regards to Kahu, because Pirongia got its name from Ratatoura, who was the husband of Kahu. And there are a number of kōrero in and around Kahu and her full ingoa. So we asked Amanda just to give us some time, and Tom Raw will do a write-up in regards to the ingoa or the name that we want to give it. But it's really special to be able to have something on Pirongia for the very first time that recognises Kahu, Ratatoura's wife. So that's something very special. The other thing I also wanted to say is that in talking about it, we found that the stream or the creek also had this kai in it. From our perspective, there's kura, and we'd like to bring those back and bring a lot more of them in. Watercress, and we're also, part of that plan is to have a forest kai up there as well. So all of the things that are important to mana whenua is part and parcel of this plan. I did also note that there is a bit of a discussion that will be occurring around part exotic, part native. I think it's safe to say to you that mana whenua will push that it is all native, and that fits with the ecological corridor perspectives. So just so you know, those key points are key for mana whenua going forward on this project.
Kia ora. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I think that's very, very appropriate to hear those comments. So thank you for that. Okay, if there's no other comments or questions, we've got a recommendation A and B. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Claire would like to move it, I'm sure. Yes. And Marcus, Marcus would like to second. So all in favour? Carried. Thank you. Okay, right. We shall move on to the submissions on the natural and built environments bill and the spatial planning bill, and Melissa and Kirsty will be presenting these to us. I hear David might come online if we're going to allow him. Hopefully David's feeling a wee bit better.
Yes, he's doing well, thank you. So good morning, everybody. So yes, the submission on the natural and built environments bill and the spatial planning bill. So this is part of the central government RMA reform package. This was workshopped with council on the 14th of February and following incorporation of any feedback received during that workshop. The submission was made on the 15th in time for closing. This was the final opportunity for council to submit before these bills become legislation, but we have no timeframes around when that is expected to be at this stage.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Claire has a question.
Well, more of a comment. I just want to say I'm really impressed with the detail and I suppose, yeah, good thinking behind the comments that are in the submission. So just want to congratulate the staff that prepared it. And if there's no further questions or anything, I'd be happy to move the resolution.
Thank you, Claire. Any other comments, Lou?
I'd like to totally, through you, Madam Chair, reflect what Councillor St Pierre said. I think that the problem with this is very much a top-down thing again, and unfortunately I think it develops into being very complex. Having dealt with this through January with the civil defence, as I say, at the joint committee level, we found that it was rather siloed and there's no provision here for the intervention of controllers in a civil emergency, which will have to be part of all this infrastructure. So I just feel that we've made some very good comments. I'd like to say to David, an excellent contribution, well done, well written, and would support it.
Okay. All right, okay, we've got a mover and a seconder. Any other comments? No, I'd like to put the motion to the floor. All in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, thank you both, which I think you're going to stay there because our next item is Waikato Regional Council Plan Change 1.
Yes, thank you again. So this was the submission to Waikato Regional Council's Plan Change 1. Council originally provided feedback through the original submissions process through Futureproof as a Futureproof partner. Upon legal advice, it was recommended that we make our own submission through the further submission process, and with the purpose in mind of retaining our right of appeal. So that submission has also been made in response to a bit of an update that was provided through the quarterly growth update report. So.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. Any comments on this item? Fairly straightforward, I would think. Okay, so we've got a recommendation there to receive this. So A and B and endorse it. So Mike Pettit's happy to move it and Andrew Brown second. All in favour? Carried. Thank you, everybody. All right, we're going to move to our CCTV policy item. Welcome back, Diana. I believe Brian is not able to be here, but we've got him on phone if we have any specific questions regarding that, but we'll let you introduce the item if that's all right.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everybody. So my report is today seeking approval for a new CCTV guide to replace our current CCTV policies, and also for a delegation to the Chief Executive to approve amendments to that CCTV guide going forward. And so just by way of background to why this is coming today, last year our staff launched Stategic, which was really a staff charter about setting the requirements and expectations for staff working at council. And as part of that project, we looked at doing policy rationalisation. So really looking at the current policies for staff and going, how can we like simplify them, make them more user friendly and sort of really bring them alive. And so as part of that process, we looked and we saw that there were 2 CCTV policies for council. And often staff wouldn't know that there were 2, so they might be just working on one, not aware of the other. Also, there was confusion about which one applied where and so forth. So basically, this exercise was really just to consolidate those 2 policies, really trying to simplify the language and update it where necessary. But we weren't looking to relook at things at all, but just really sort of a better tool to put the message through. And on top of that, we developed a privacy policy, which really underpins all the CCTV operations. We need to ensure that we comply with policy. So we weren't looking to change how CCTV operations are governed, but really just to make sure that it's simplified and put into a clearer format for staff to follow. And that's what today's guide is all about. So very happy to take questions.
Okay, Claire.
Thanks, Diana. I totally applaud the aim to simplify and streamline policies. I had a question about the lack of any audit or evaluation provisions, because there were some in the public CCTV policy rather than the council one, but they don't appear to be in the combined one. I mean, I do feel it's really important that we are accountable to the community about the data that's collected and how it's used, and we do need some sort of feedback loops, I think. So in the original public one, there was an advisory group that was combined council and the New Zealand Police, with the audit results reported through to councillors. So I would really like to see that retained in some form.
So my understanding was that that was removed because it wasn't so much that was done on a formal basis. And so we thought it was better to sort of keep that out of the policy in terms of a formal prescriptive basis doing auditing. But obviously there's always flexibility for us to audit and for anybody to audit how we comply with our CCTV obligations. So the fact it was in there, and it's in there, but actually in practice it isn't followed to the letter, it means it's not something that's sort of current and something that people are doing. But obviously absolutely, you know, there needs to be that accountability, but that can be done as and when, if you know what I mean. So that's the reasons why it was removed.
So what you're saying is it wasn't overlooked. It's just that I'm a bit nervous about just saying, well, we'd audit it when we felt there was an issue. I mean, I would like to, and I agree that I don't think we've seen an audit report come to council on CCTV. Maybe because we've been working on trying to get the system set up to a satisfactory operating point. But I feel a bit nervous about not having anything in the policy, even if it was just that there will be a review process or reporting back to council. And I would like to set, like, even if it was annual or 6 monthly, just so that we have visibility of it.
Look, I would support that as well. I was going to raise, so under 4.4, the governance there, because look, the CCTV cameras over the whole district actually has caused quite a bit of angst over the last couple of years. So there have been, the advisory group has been extended to include a number of other people interested in particular retailers, of course, and a number of councillors around this table have been attending these meetings as well. In fact, I think I've been chairing them. So we haven't had a meeting in a wee while. I think it's timely that we resurrect that. I like the idea of reporting back to the full council. I think it's important. But you know, there has been a lot of interest in where the exact locations of these cameras are to go, and I think that's a moving it's always, it needs to stay live because it needs to be something that we can be nimble and we can move cameras as required. And I think this policy allows for that, which is good. But I think that advisory group needs to continue to meet so that we continue to meet the needs of our community. So under that particular item, I think we're just going to update the council's, it talks there about council's group manager, strategy and community services. I think that's the old name. So we're just going to update that.
The guide does have the new name.
So the new name, yeah, okay, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
And I was keen to see an elected members on this list as well.
Yep.
So that we kind of have a bit of an open invitation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Further to that, the original policy for community and safety in public places had a checklist. Now, I don't want to see that in the new policy, but is it that checklist or a version of it used?
Just remind myself of the checklist.
Yeah.
Yes, so that checklist is a police document, and so it's not something I'm aware that council staff use. So again, that's what so that's from a police procedure. So that's why we didn't include it in the guide itself.
Right, it's actually a very comprehensive checklist covering several pages, and I'm quite a fan of checklists. Getting things right, I suppose. But okay, no, that's fine. Thanks.
Through the chair, I'll just say that on our governance, there is a sort of a list of things of what to take into account before considering expansion of the network. So there is a sort of guide about what is relevant for the group to consider.
Okay, all right. Monty.
Thanks. Just in the the new policy, the locations of the community CCTVs, it says cameras in the community may only be installed in sites where there is a higher than normal risk of traffic congestion or a higher than normal incidence of antisocial behaviour. I know that, like in Cambridge, they're being installed so that the police can see who's coming and going. So on the major access points, and I would suggest that that doesn't comply with either of those criteria, which is a really key point of why we're having these things. And it's framed as the imperative, like, you know, we'd already be outside of the policy.
Yes, I would agree with that. And I guess it's really important to stay as nimble around this as we possibly can, because this is a moving environment. And I
agreed, and I thought that was overly prescriptive.
Perhaps it is.
We could add or other such measures for the purposes of aligning with the purposes.
I think we'd like to see it a little bit broader, Diana, if that's okay. I think that's important. And yeah, the only other amendment, like I said, I would like to see elected members on that on the group as well. And I appreciate that. We're not going to name a member, I don't think, but perhaps I'd like to see comment around that. It has been very effective the last 2 years having elected members in that advisory group. It means we've been able to keep, you know, our communities, I guess, a little, you know, there's been a sense of dissatisfaction with it, and I'd just like to make sure that we keep the project moving at the pace that our communities expect.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I support that, because members of our business community or in the community are approaching us, or they're approaching me anyway, about various requests, and it's a moving target where people want these cameras, and some people want them in this place and that place. We obviously can't cover everything, don't want to cover everything, but there's certainly areas that we need to know about that we may have not have thought about, or what have you. So,
yeah. Thanks, Philip. Yep, good comments. Yes, sorry, Lou. Yes.
That's fine. Look, I actually sit down on a Ramroads committee, okay, with the local community. We've actually worked through. I just want to recognise to everybody that there are a lot of people out there, businesses with their own cameras, and I operate with a large club that is utilised by the police on a regular occasions, where we have monitors actually covering the main street. And we have, things that happen perhaps at the Red Elk or other places at intersections, and they are using these private cameras. So we've got to link the police actually want to link these together over time, from what I'm understanding. So what we're putting in, it's only going to be an integral part of what we see as a wider network over time. And I think that if we can look at things, for example, RAM rates, if you've got something that actually covers the whole thing, you can actually say stage by stage, it's good. But I wanted to actually congratulate you on centralising the policy. I think it's much, much more accessible when you have a single policy rather than two policies, one internal, one external, and putting them collectively together. I do tend to agree that there is problems with privacy, but you do state down here that CTV is not to be used to undertake surveillance of individuals or groups, but images can be used, potentially used in criminal or employee misconduct investigations. And there's also a piece of legislation that we actually destroy our recordings at 30 days. Okay, so it's all of that sits there now as part of that legislation. So you can't have it both ways. Unfortunately, we're in an era of surveillance, whether we like it or not. And I know that even to such things as the car park at the sports club, for example, and around the looking at the grandstand area, where we've had significant amounts of damage done to toilets and things. This does enhance and help us in those sort of situations. So I think that we've got to sort of co-balance this, but I'm quite supportive and quite happy with those few adjustments to move the
Right, so Jo has moved to the hot seat, so I'm guessing she has got some changes or suggestions.
Yeah, just comparing to finalise the amended recommendation that we're going to put up on the screens. Just a moment.
Mike.
Yeah, through the chair, just while Jo's organising that, Philip sort of made a comment, or Councillor Cos made a comment that we don't want cameras everywhere, but I'm almost just the opposite. I mean, the safest place I've been on earth is Singapore, where they've got cameras looking at cameras, and you've got women out jogging at early hours of the morning. They might finish work at 11 and they're out jogging at 12, sort of thing. It's the safest place on the planet, and I'm all for cameras. People might think they lose their liberty and all the rest of it, but I'd much rather have a safe community, knowing that someone's looking out for us and connected to the police with some decent penalties, than having just sporadic cameras around the place. So that committee, whoever's on there, whether it's myself or someone else, but let's find the money to introduce as many cameras in this district as we can.
Thank you, Mike. Also good comments. I think we'd probably all agree with that to a certain extent. It's just the cost. So good timing. Our annual plan and long-term plan just around the corner, of course, so we can certainly include them in our considerations. Roger.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to endorse Lou's comment about incorporating the private cameras into the network.
Yes.
And I'm aware that there are a number of private cameras in our two main urban areas that could enhance the coverage of our network. Is there anything that could be formalized about that, or has it just got to be?
I think that the liaison group have been really good actually at identifying where the gaps are, and the police certainly know where the gaps are as well. So it feels like we have been working towards more collaboration between private and public camera installations anyway, and I'm not sure we need a resolution around it. I think it's happening naturally. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with where we've been. Yeah, I'll let you take a moment to read the amendments to Part B here of the recommendation, and if everybody is happy with it, I've had a quick read. It feels clear. You're always good at this stuff. Looks good to you, right? Good. No pressure. That's right. Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder then, please? So Lou is going to move, and Philip is going to second. All in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, thanks, everybody. Okay, so we're going to move on to a resolution to exclude the public. We've got some minutes to confirm. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Andrew. All in favour?